Thank you, thank you. For those of you who don't know how ministers get fed on Sunday, well, on Saturdays too probably, but on Sundays is by the music. And so one more round of applause, please, for this team. I'm consulting with some churches locally, and I'll say to them, so if you really want to grow, go listen to the music at Melbourne. Because that is the way in which you all, even though you may not know this, get the message even more so, is that the music complements the message. And so it's interesting, because I'll say, I don't mean to offend you as your paid consultant. Not always a good idea to offend those that you're getting paid from. However, your music is not serving you. And so you're going to see more and more people coming to visit and see who you are and what's happening here. So I became a member here 13 years ago, and it's all Jane Thompson's fault. And I'm grateful forever to you, you know that. And so we're continuing today with our series called Jesus Today. Now in Unity, that's a pretty controversial subject, even the name Jesus. One of the things that we were talking about how to describe what unity is. Tom Shepard, who is one of the teachers, at least right now, at Unity School, says that we are culturally Christian and spiritually unlimited. It's kind of good, right? So sometimes we're a lot like JC, and sometimes we're like Buddha, right? Because when we meditate, we're more like Buddha, aren't we? Because Jesus probably prayed more than he meditated. But of course we don't know because we weren't there, right? So that's why you'll hear us say, the Bible tells us that, because none of us know really what happened. But we're grateful for all of those who do the research. I also want to say that you never, again, get to call yourself a pea brain. Because I don't allow my friends to be called names that aren't necessarily nice. Okay? Everybody? Yes? And quit bragging about the size of your brain.
That's my job.
Yeah. That's right. So what would Jesus be doing today if he were walking around? Well, he probably would have a cell phone, right? And he'd probably have a car. He wouldn't be doing so much walking. But he'd be here, right? Because that's when we talk about Jesus in Unity, we're talking about the man who walked the earth. Yes, he was a prophet. At least that's what we're told. Is he any different than you and me today? No. So everybody breathe. Because we all have the same qualities. And he just happened probably to spend a little bit more time than some of us in prayer or in knowing and discovering what the truth of who he was and what he was supposed to do. You still have time. Some of the things that Reverend Beth said you were talking about were the personality and the spiritual parts of Jesus. So the personality traits. And how we look at that metaphysically in Unity is, what are those things that are more of our humanity? Because we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Our soul is eternal, and it goes on forever and ever and ever. And right now we're just having this human condition. Sometimes it's pretty and sometimes it's not, right? Because if your personality is showing up like, yuck poo, then it's not so nice. Now that's an official term when you're a nana, because you have little ones and they do yucko poo, right? So spiritual characteristics are what we call about the individual part of us, the individuality. And so that's something I had to learn before I was able to graduate from ministerial school, because pretty much the personality of Therese showed up a lot. Still does. Not as much. You know, as you grow older, you know, everything gets tempered with something. And so I needed to really understand the difference between the two. It's not something you learn one day and then boom, you're on it the next day. But it's something that we continue to look at when we look at Jesus as providing us with a roadmap on how maybe it is, if we wanted more yeses in our life, what it would look like. And yes means your empowerment system. Would it be okay if there was more joy in your life? Yes. Excuse me? Yes. Okay, thanks. Now let's say it again with our playground voices. Yes. Right? And we get to choose in every moment. Is this, it's 90 degrees today, or it's 90 degrees today and Minnesota's getting snow. Yes! You get to decide, because they are still getting snow up north. Oh my gosh, it's almost May. So the characteristic that Reverend Beth asked me to speak about was zeal, which is kind of my middle name. Charles Fillmore at 94 said, "I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth," which is what our fifth unity principle, "with a mighty faith to do those things that are to be done by me." So it's not like, woohoo, I think this is great, but you don't do anything. No, get up, do something. At 94, he also said at 94 that he has the right to change his mind. And he needed to change his mind. You know, that's because some of the stuff that he was thinking early on, not so much applicable by the time he was 94, and some of those things we're still working with today, aren't we? So zeal in the revealing word, if you don't have one, you might want to get one. It's fun to read to figure out what do all these words mean metaphysically. Zeal is enthusiasm, and enthu means of God. It's very interesting as you start picking apart things and thinking, oh my God, this is fabulous work. It means the inward fire of the soul that urges us onward, regardless, this is my favorite part, of the intellectual mind of caution and being conservative. That's not who I am. And so trying to be that shows up not pretty. And I don't want to be that. So it's not telling you who to be. It's say, be yourself and do as Jesus did. I was just at a conference on spiritual intelligence, something that I'm being certified in, and we had an Episcopal priest come and talk to us about the shadow side. He's now a Jungian therapist. His name was the Very Reverend, and I thought, oh, step back, wow. I said, and he was very tall, he was like 6'3". I said, wow, you must be a really big thing. He goes, no, I'm just really tall. And he said, if we don't be ourselves, because people say, well, I'm going to be like Jesus. He said, no, be the best you, do as Jesus did. Practicing the practices of Jesus is good. Trying to be like Jesus is not good for our mental health. There was about 60 of us in this room. An audible gasp. And for me, a real clarity that sunk into my gut, like, oh, I don't have to stop being Therese. I can temper it with wisdom and things like that, and then I can do as Jesus did. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about the 12 powers of mind, the 12 faculties. How will you be the best you in expression of all that is great? Zeal is the mighty force that incites the winds, the tides, and the storms. Now that would have come from my husband, Tom. Right, Jane? Because he was a sailor. And Tom was the board president here when I met him, and he fell in love with me. So the rest is history, and that's why I'm part of this church, and it's fabulous. And I can say that without crying, which is a really big deal here now that he has his angel wings for 3 years. We're grateful. I was saying to Darren as I was driving here, when I come now, because I live up on Merritt Island, I usually come down Tropical Trail or one or something, but I came on 95, and as I started getting close to the O'Galley exit, my heart rate increased, and I thought, this is weird. You just go to Melbourne, like Melbourne. What's the big deal? Well, for me, I don't know that I've come that way in 3 years. And so the memories as I came upon the street, and here's the building, and he held the vision with you all about moving, and so it's happening. This is what is so exciting. It's so exciting to go forward, to keep going. So how do you get full of zeal each morning? So you're in bed and you're sleeping and you open one eye. At least I still do. Okay, I'm still alive. Then do you say, oh, good morning, God, or good God, it's morning. What's your attitude? How do you start each day knowing if it's maybe raining out or it's sunny or whatever's happening outside of you? What are you doing inside of you to make sure that everything you do in the next 24 hours is going to be great? It's about our attitude, isn't it? That's why the title is Our Attitudes Are Contagious. The question is yours worth catching? That's up to you, right? It's always up to us. That's the greatest thing about unity. There's no way you can blame anybody else for anything going on in your life because it's all because of you, or it's all because of Therese in my life. So we get up, we listen, don't we? Sometimes we listen to the radio or the TV, or we've got our favorite CD. We might be listening to Joel Osteen or Joyce Meyer or somebody else who inspires us, or one of the Fillmore people. How do you each day decide how you're going to be full of zeal and on fire for yourself? You get to choose. You might start doing that in the morning. Today I'm going to be on fire about, and fill in the blank. Just have a little piece of paper, write it down. At the end of the day you say, oh, I was so on fire about, write it, and I'm grateful. Or didn't quite make it to on fire. I was kind of mediocre about it, and tomorrow I'll try again. It's all right. We always have another day. But don't wait too long. We know that Jesus was on fire about everything in his life. He was kind of a rebel. That's why he's one of my mentors. You can breathe and laugh about that. The biggest question I always get, or the comment I always get from somebody is, you know, you really don't look like a minister, and you don't really act like one. I'm like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Trying to break the mold, right? Because I believe we're all ministers. I might just have a different piece of paper from a different school than you might have. So there's also the side, isn't there, to a quality like zeal that sometimes probably needs a little balancing. For me, that growing edge is always tempering my zeal with wisdom, because I get excited about, you know, nearly anything. My big thing right now, if you watch Facebook, is Heart Rocks, and having meetings, I think they're quite personal, with herons that come and fly down just as I'm walking, and of course I think they're there to walk with me. I don't know, I might be making it up, but I'm on fire about it. And so I'm thinking as I get to the beach, okay, there's going to be a heron here today. And then I forget about it as I walk, and then boom, right before I leave, there's the heron. So what are you on fire about that brings you back to purpose? That gets you out of your mind and thinking about this problem or that problem or whatever all is going on, and getting you to excitement. And it's a pretty exciting time. You have a new building, yes? And so how are you going to be part of this, all of this excitement? Well, you have two things you said, right? Yeah, Reverend Beth is pretty smart. She you know, on the ball when she says we're going to go down to two things. I would like to pack for our move, or I'm going to plan the grand opening. So figure it out. There's also probably a few other things involved in there, like actually moving, right? Because once you pack, you have to move. So how are you going to be on fire, full of zeal, tempered with wisdom, to figure out how to make this exciting time memorable? Because if you're thinking, well, I don't know, this could happen, and this could happen, and that could happen, then the zeal kind of goes away, doesn't it? And your shoulders slump, and every day gets to be a chore. So do it as part of the team. She's asking you to be part of a team. And so that's what Jesus was. He had a whole team of people, didn't he? 12 disciples, probably many more. We know that one of them was at least a woman. Probably more, but we'll know at least one, probably Mary Magdalene. He hung out with her. Didn't judge her, because we don't really know if all of that was written about her is true anyway, but we know that he had a team of 12. And the story goes on to tell us that probably Simon was what we might call his front man. He was the one that said, let me help you with your famous phrase that is, follow me, right? Jesus said, follow me. So Reverend Beth isn't necessarily asking you to follow her, she's just asking you to get on a team and get the work done, right? So in football, terminology, it might be that Simon was the wide receiver. He was the one to make sure that everything was going to happen so that we can win the game. So the focus of the next month is on getting the move ready and going forward. And then getting ready there to welcome people you're going to get because of your location. You're going to have lots of drive-bys, good drive-bys. Not the Detroit or Chicago kind that I'm familiar with, the good kind. And people will walk in and say, what's Unity? What is this? So there is an elevator speech, so to speak, on what it is that we say. So we want to make sure we're all saying the same thing, other than it's really way cool, dude. Come on. You know, that's not probably going to fly with those people over 60. So Jesus was enthusiastic, and he wanted to have all of the followers and anybody who would listen, right, learn. So he was a teacher, he was a facilitator, he modeled, he demonstrated. That's what we do. When Maggie is teaching a class here, when Paulette's teaching a class here, Suzette and Paul, all those people who are helping you guys get into your SEE and all of those other classes, and anyone else who has a class here, you know, the word that came to my mind was Darlene, because she was one of my teachers. And Rose is the person that I get to room with right now, so it's really great. I mean, there's so much about this church that's up and in each of us as we go forward. So many people have come out of this church. It's fabulous. So as you draw your strength from being part of a team, then you can get passionate. Even on those days where, that's not that so much, call someone and say, hey, I need some help with my zeal today. Can you light my fire? Right? Now, be careful how you say that and who you might ask that of, right? Because I don't want calls from Reverend Beth saying, I heard you say, and so they did, you know. So Jesus ignited the people he spoke with the spark of God, the spark of awe, the spark of omnipotence, the spark of good and great and abundance. And when we get that spark, you know, people will say, so did you lose some weight? Did you get a new haircut? You're like, no, I go to church on Sunday. Or I go to Unity. What's that? They'll always ask you, what's that? And so then you get to tell them. It's about living the way Jesus lived. That's the biggest difference between us and mainline churches. Listen to your soul. What is the song that it's singing? Maybe it's going to be yes for a while. Yes, yes, yes. What will you do? How will you do it to fulfill what is yours to do? How will you have your attitude be contagious so that others say, hey, I want to be on your team. And you know what? Will you show me how to do that? Because that's the way we learn. That's the way we learn. But sometimes, do you find yourself saying no, 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 and you're isolating, you're in the house, you don't take phone calls, you're not calling anybody, everything's heavy, you're mad, touchy. Call somebody and say, I can't stand myself right now. Will you help me get out of this? And I've had to do that. I haven't called Maggie lately, but I have called her to say, will you help me with myself, because I can't get to where I need to be. And so it depends on what's happening in your life, and it's okay. Just don't just don't build a condo there. Just kind of walk through it. You know, it tells, as in the 23rd Psalm, we walk through the valley. We don't build a condo there. We don't stay there. And so feel the feelings that you're feeling. That's how we can get to zeal, when we're authentic. And then when something isn't as joyful, feel it, let it go, and get back to what is joyful. Because we do think we have time. And that is the biggest illusion. So think for yourself, just for a minute. Close your eyes and think. So this means up in your head. What have I really wanted to do this, fill in the blank, or I really feel like that. Whatever it is, something that is a longing on your heart, think about it in your mind. And now imagine whatever that is. It could be a job, a relationship, a traveling trip, whatever it is. eating right, drinking less, whatever. No one is going to tell you no. No one. Everyone is going to say yes. Yes, you can take that trip to Europe. Yes, you can have that job. Yes, the right relationship is on its way to you. Yes, it's okay to feel sad that your puppy died. Yes. Breathe from your belly. Feel that sense of knowing that whatever you feel is okay. And now move it down from your head into your heart. If it helps to put your hand on your heart, do that. And this is where dreams come true. We stop thinking about them. We put our love and all of our zeal behind them, and they make manifest. Because our heart is part of the manifestation and outpicturing of all that we are supposed to do. So open your eyes and turn to your neighbor and say, yes, you can. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. It's a little word, isn't it? And no is even littler, and how impactful they've been in our life, haven't they? I think of that every time I'm with one of my grandbabies and I go to say the word no. I think, don't say no, figure out something else to say, Nana. And sometimes no is appropriate, but I'm trying to be a yes Nana within boundaries. And so life is really wild. You can imagine. With, 2 5-year-olds, a 2.5-year-old, a 8-year-old, it's a full life, and an almost 1-year-old. And so life is good. And if you can wake up every morning and you're sleeping in your bed, and you just get up and say, life is good, what is Spirit asking to be born today through me? Because this is the only way that the Word of God gets out. It's the only way the word joy and love and enthusiasm gets out is because of us. It's a big job to be you and a big job to be me. And so we get to call on each other for support, and we get to turn up our zeal notch, especially as we start this next month, and you'll see me a little bit more as Reverend Beth figures out how I can help you all, because I'm kind of bossy. And so I might come in and say, come on, let's do this and let's do that. And Reverend Beth might have another idea. And so now, as I get older, I get to say, how may I be of service to you? And not bring my agenda with me. Right? And it's okay to have an agenda, but just know when to use it. And so how every day will you get up and say yes, your empowering system, be on fire, know it's all good, and when it's time to cry, it's okay. And when it's time to breathe, and no is also a complete sentence. So let us pray. Living, loving presence, thank you for this morning. Thank you for this circle on a journey we call Unity Church of Melbourne. Thank you for the faculties of mind which we were concentrating on zeal today. That which lights the fire within us and lets us go forward. That lets us be our fifth principle in action. Walking our talk, putting feet on our faith. Thank you for Reverend Beth and for the board and for all the leaders of this church that make it so palpably welcoming each time that we're all here. Thank you for the music and for all the sound people, for all of the ushers and hospitality and everybody that makes this church happen. And thank you for my heart full of memories that allow me to know all is good. Because of all of you, I am grateful in this now moment. We pray this, God. We know this, and so we say thank you. We are committed to being yes people, empowering ourselves, and being in your name and after your nature as we step forward and be on purpose and full of zeal, tempering always with wisdom. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen.